It's Rob. Today I am going to discuss Chapter 3 of the course IS Audit. Our topic is Understanding the Client's Use of IT. The discussion is primarily based on ISA 315, particularly the requirements on paragraphs 25A, which is related to the auditor obtaining an understanding of the entity's information system, and communication relevant to the preparation of the financial statements, and paragraphs 26B and C related to the auditor obtaining an understanding of the control activities component. So I encourage you to download the said audit standard so you can follow on the discussion. As always, in the practice of accountancy, we should remember to be professional, perform effectively and efficiently, follow standards, and document our work adequately and properly. Our topics for this discussion are 1. Understanding the information system. Discusses the various aspects of an information system that an auditor has to understand, including those that relate to the entity's financial reporting objectives, the resources to be used in the entity's information processing activities, the policies that define the flows of information, and of course, the entity's business processes. 2. The entity's use of IT in information system explains why the auditor must understand the IT environment relevant to the information system and what such endeavor entails. This topic also focuses our attention to the characteristic of IT applications and other aspects of the IT environment and guidelines related to those characteristics that may be relevant in identifying IT applications and other aspects of the IT environment subject to risks arising from the use of IT. 3. Identifying risks arising from the use of IT. Lists down some examples of risks arising from the use of IT, including risks related to inappropriate reliance on its applications that are inaccurately processing inaccurate data, or both. And lastly, 4. Identifying IT applications that are subject to risks arising from the use of IT. Looks at the nature and complexity of the specific IT processes the entity has in place that assists the auditor in determining which IT applications the entity is relying upon to accurately process and maintain the integrity of data in the entity's information system. And on with our first topic.
Understanding the information system. As we have learned in our course Accounting Information System, information systems may be manual or automated. We also pointed out in Chapter 1 that the overall objective and scope of an audit does not differ whether an entity operates in a mainly manual environment, a completely automated environment, or an environment involving some combinations of manual and automated elements, that is, manual and automated controls and other resources used in entity's system of internal control. Information systems are direct controls. The controls in the information system, including the communication and control activities components, are primarily direct controls, which means that such controls are sufficiently precise to prevent, detect, or correct misstatements in the assertion level. Why the auditor is required to understand the information system and communications and controls in the controlled activities component. because understanding the entity's policies that define the flow of transactions and other aspects of the entity's information processing activities relevant to the preparation of the financial statements and evaluating whether the components are appropriately supported. The preparation of the entity's financial statements supports the auditor's identification and assessment of risks of material misstatement at the assertion level. This understanding and evaluation may also result in the identification of risks of material misstatement at the financial statement level when the result of the auditor's procedures are inconsistent with expectations about the entity's system of internal control that may have been set based on information obtained during the engagement acceptance or continuance process. Responsibilities of the auditor. The auditor is required to identify specific controls in the control activities component and evaluate the design and determine whether the controls have been implemented, as it assists the auditor's understanding about management's approach to addressing certain risks and therefore provides a basis for the design and performance of further audit procedures responsive to those risks as required by ISA 330. The higher on the spectrum of inherent risks a risk is assessed, the more persuasive the audit evidence needs to be. Even when the auditor does not plan to test the operating effectiveness of identified controls, the auditor's understanding may still affect the design of the nature, timing, and extent of substantive audit procedures that are responsive to the related risks of material misstatements. The auditor's understanding of the information system includes understanding the policies that define flows of information relating to the entity's significant classes of transactions, account balances and disclosures, and other related aspects of an entity's information processing activities. This information and the information obtained from the auditor's evaluation of the information system may confirm or further influence the auditor's expectations about the significant classes of transactions, account balances, and disclosures initially identified. Matters the auditor may consider when understanding the policies that define the flows of information relating to the entity's significant classes of transactions, account balances, and disclosures in the information system and communication component include the nature of the data or information relating to transactions, other events and conditions to be processed, b. the information processing to maintain the integrity of that data or information, and c. the information processes, personnel, and other resources used in the information processing process. In obtaining an understanding of how information relating to significant classes of transactions, account balances, and disclosures flow into, through, and out of the entity's information system, the auditor may also identify controls in the control activities component that are required to be identified by the auditor, who may first focus on controls over journal entries and controls that the auditor plans to test the operating effectiveness of in designing the nature, timing, and extent of substanding procedures. Understanding the entity's information system also includes an understanding of the resources to be used in the entity's information processing activities, information about the human resources involved that may be relevant to understanding risks to the integrity of the information system include the competence of the individuals undertaking the work, whether there are adequate resources, and whether there is appropriate segregation of duties. Scalability. The information system and related business processes in less complex entities are likely to be less sophisticated than in larger entities, and are likely to involve a less complex IT environment. However, the role of the information system is just as important. Less complex entities with direct management involvement may not need extensive description of accounting procedures, sophisticated accounting records, or written policies. Understanding the relevant aspects of the entity's information system may therefore require less effort in any audit of a less complex entity. It may involve a greater amount of inquiry than observation or inspection of documents. The need to obtain an understanding, however, remains important to provide a basis for the design of further audit procedures in accordance with ISA 3-6 and may further assist the auditor in identifying or assessing risks of material misstatement. Ways to understand the information system. The auditor's understanding of the information system may be obtained in various ways and may include the following, which were also discussed in your auditing and assurance subjects. Inquiries of relevant personnel about the procedures used to initiate, record, process, and report transactions, or about the entity's financial reporting process. Inspection of policy or process manuals, or other documentation of the entity's information system. Observation of the performance of the policies or procedures by entities' personnel, or selecting transactions and tracing them to the applicable process in the information system, that is, performing a walkthrough. Confirming the understanding. The auditor may also use automated techniques to 1. Obtain direct access to or a data download from the databases in the entity's information system that store accounting records of transactions. And 2. By applying automated tools or techniques to this information, the auditor may confirm the understanding obtained about how transactions flow through the information system by tracing journal entries or other digital records related to a particular transaction, or an entire population of transactions from initiation in the accounting records through to recording in the general ledger. Analysis of complete or large sets of transactions may also result in the identification of variations from the normal or expected processing procedures for these transactions, which may result in the identification of risks of material misstatement.
The entity's use of information technology in the information system. An entity's use of IT affects the manner in which the information relevant to the preparation of the financial statements in accordance with applicable financial reporting framework is processed, stored, and communicated, and therefore affects the manner in which the entity's system of internal control is designed and implemented. Each component of the entity system of internal control may use some extent of IT. Why does the auditor understand the environment relevant to the information system? The auditor's understanding of the information system includes the IT environment relevant to the flows of transaction and processing of information in the entity's information system. because the entity's use of the applications or other aspects in the IT environment may give rise to risks arising from the use of IT. The understanding of the entity's business model and how it integrates the use of IT may also provide useful context to the nature and extent of IT expected in the information system. Benefits of using IT. The entity's information system may include the use of manual and automated elements, which also affect the manner in which transactions are initiated, recorded, processed, and reported. In particular, procedures to initiate, record, process, and report transactions may be enforced through the IT applications used by the entity and how the entity has configured those applications. In addition, records in the form of digital information may replace or supplement records in the form of paper documents. Generally, IT benefits an entire entity system of internal control by enabling an entity to consistently apply volume business rules and perform complex calculations in processing large volumes of transactions or data. Enhance the timeliness, availability, and accuracy of information. Facilitate the additional analysis of information. Enhance the ability to monitor the performance of the entity's activities and its policies and procedures. Reduce the risk that controls will be circumvented and enhance their ability to achieve effective segregation of duties by implementing security controls in IT applications, databases, and operating systems. Some of these may by now be familiar to you from our discussion of Chapter 1 and Chapter 2. IT more reliable than manual. Automated controls may be more reliable than manual controls because they cannot be as easily bypassed, ignored, or overridden, and they are also less prone to simple errors and mistakes. Automated controls may be more effective than manual controls in the following circumstances: high volume of recurring transactions, or in situations where errors that can be anticipated or predicted can be prevented or detected and corrected through automation, and controls where the specific ways to perform the control can be adequately designed and automated. Focus of the auditor's understanding. The auditor's understanding of the IT environment may focus on identifying and understanding the nature of and number of the specific IT applications and other aspects of the IT environment that are relevant to the flows of transactions and processing of information in the information system. Changes in the flow of transactions or information within the information system may result from program changes to IT applications or direct changes to data and databases involved in processing or storing those transactions or information. The auditor may identify the IT applications and supporting IT infrastructure concurrently with the auditor's understanding of how information relating to significant classes of transactions, account balances, and disclosures flow into, through, and out of the information system. The auditor's evaluation of whether the entity's information system and communication appropriately supports the preparation of the financial statements is based on the understanding obtained as discussed in the preceding slides. Obtaining an understanding of the entity's IT environment may be more easily accomplished for a less complex entity, as already mentioned, that uses commercial software and when the entity does not have access to the source code to make any program changes. Such entities may not have dedicated IT resources, but may have a person assigned in an administrative role for the purpose of granting employee access or installing vendor-provided updates to the IT applications. Specific matters that the auditor may consider in understanding the nature of a commercial accounting software package, which may be the single IT application used by a less complex entity in its information system, may include the extent to which the software is well established and has a reputation for reliability, the extent to which it is possible for the entity to modify the source code of the software to include additional modules that add-ons to the base software, or to make direct changes to data. The nature and extent of modifications that have been made to the software. Although an entity may not be able to modify the source code of the software, many software packages allow for configuration. For example, setting or amending reporting parameters. These do not usually involve modifications to source code. However, the auditor may consider the extent to which the entity is able to configure the software when considering the completeness and accuracy of information provided by the software that is used as audit evidence, and the extent to which data related to the preparation of the financial statements can be directly accessed. That is, directly access to the database without using the ID application, and the volume of data that is processed. The greater the volume of data, the more likely the entity may need controls that address maintaining the integrity of the data, which may include general ID controls over unauthorized access and changes to the data. Complex environments may include highly customized or highly integrated applications, and may therefore require more effort to understand. Financial reporting processes or ID applications may be integrated with other ID applications. Such integration may involve applications that are used in the entity's business operations and that provide information to the ID applications relevant to the flows of transactions and information processing in the entity's information system. In such circumstances, certain ID applications used in the entity's business operations may also be relevant to the preparation of the financial statements. Complex ID environments also may require dedicated IT departments that are structured by e-processes, supported by personnel that have software development and IT environment maintenance skills. In other cases, an entity may use internal or external service providers to manage certain aspects of or ID processes within its IT environment. For example, third-party hosting. Matters the auditor may consider in obtaining understanding of the IT environment. A. Matters related to extent of automation and use of data. 1. The extent of automated procedures for processing and complexity of those procedures, including whether there is highly automated paperless processing. For non-complex commercial software, this is not applicable. For mid-sized and moderately complex commercial software or its applications, it's also not applicable. For large or complex IT applications, for example, ERP systems, this is extensive and often complex automated procedures. 2. The extent of the entity's reliance on system-generated reports in the processing of information. For non-complex commercial software, simple automated report logic will do. For mid-size and moderately complex commercial software or ID applications, simplex relevant automated report logic is usually implemented. But for large or complex ID applications, there is complex automated report logic and report writer software is usually used. Number 3. How data is input. That is, manual input, customer or vendor input, or file load. For non-complex, this is usually manual data inputs. For moderate size, small number of data inputs are simple interfaces. For large or complex, large number of data inputs are complex interfaces. Number 4. How IP facilitates communication between applications, databases, or other aspects of the environment internally and externally as appropriate through system interfaces. For non-complex, there is usually no automated interfaces, only manual inputs. For moderate implementations, there is a small number of data inputs or simple interfaces. For complex IT, there is usually a large number of data inputs, or there is also complex interfaces. Number 5. The volume and complexity of data in digital form being processed by the information system, including whether accounting records or other information are stored in digital form and the location of stored data. For non-complex implementation, there is usually low volume of data or simple data that is able to be verified manually. Data available or availability is usually locally available. For mid-size implementation, there is low volume of data or simple data. For large or complex implementations, there is usually large volume of data or complex data, and there is usually data warehouses, and there is use of internal or external IT service providers, for example, third-party storage or hosting of data. Now, a data warehouse is generally described as a central repository of integrated data from one or more disparate sources, such as multiple databases, from which reports may be generated or that may be used by the analyst for other data analytics activities. A report writer is an IT application that is used to extract data from one or more sources, such as a data warehouse, a database, or an IT application, and present the data in a verified format. B. Matters related to the IP applications and an IP infrastructure. 1. The type of application. For example, a commercial application with little or no customization, or a highly customized or highly integrated application that may have been purchased and customized or developed in-house. For non-complex implementation, this is usually purchased application with little or no customization. For moderate implementations, there's usually purchased application or simple legacy or low-end ERP applications with little or no customization. For complex implementations, there's usually custom-developed applications or more complex ERPs, no significant customization. Number 2. The complexity of the nature of the IT applications and the underlying IT infrastructure. For non-complex implementations, there is usually a small, simple laptop or client-server-based solution. For moderate implementations, there is mature and stable mainframe, small or simple client-server software as a service cloud. And for complex implementations, there is usually complex mainframe, large or complex client-server, web-facing infrastructure as service cloud. Number 3, whether there is a third-party hosting or outsourcing of IT. For non-complex implementations, if outsourced, competent, mature, proven provider, for example, cloud provider, is usually employed. For moderate implementations, there is outsourced, there is competent, mature, and proven provider, such as a cloud provider. And for large or complex implementations, there is competent, mature, proven provider for certain applications and new or startup provider for others. Number 4, whether the entity is using emerging technologies that affect its financial reporting. For non-complex implementations, there is usually no use of emerging technologies. For moderate implementations, there is limited use of emerging technologies in some applications, and for complex implementations, there is usually a mixed use of emerging technologies across platforms. C. Matters related to IT processes. 1. The personnel involved in maintaining the IT environment. This is the number and skill level of IT support resources that manage security and changes to the IT environment. For non-complex implementations, there is few personnel with limited IT knowledge to process vendor upgrades and manage access. For moderate implementations, there is limited personnel with IT skills, and they are dedicated to the IT department. And for complex implementations, there is dedicated IT departments with skilled personnel, including programming skills. Note 2, the complexity of processes to manage access rights. For non-complex implementations, there is usually a single individual with administrative access managing access rights. And for moderately complex implementations, there are a few individuals where administrative access managing access rights, and for complex implementations, there is a complex process for managing access rights, and these are managed by the IT department. Number 3, the complexity of the security over the IT environment, including vulnerability of the ID applications databases and other aspects of the ID environment to cyber risks, particularly when there are web-based transactions or transactions involving external interfaces. For non-complex implementations, there is simple on-premise access with no external web-facing elements. For moderate implementations, there is some web-based applications with primarily simple role-based securities. And for complex implementations, there are multiple platforms with web-based access and complex security models. Number 4, whether program changes have been made to the manner in which information is processed and the extent of such changes during the period. For non-complex implementations, commercial software have no source code installed. For moderate implementations, some commercial applications with no source code, and other mature applications with a small number of or simple changes, traditional systems development life cycle are also followed. For large implementations, there are usually new or large number or complex changes, several development cycles each year. Num. 5. The extent of change within the IT environment. For example, new aspects of the IT environment or significant changes in the IT applications or the underlying IT infrastructure. For non-complex implementation, changes are limited to version upgrades of commercial software. For moderate implementations, changes usually consist of commercial software upgrades, ERP version upgrades, or legacy enhancements. For complex implementations, there are usually new or large number of complex changes, and there are several development cycles each year, and also there could be heavy ERP customization. No. 6. Whether there was a major data conversion during the period, and if so, the nature and significance of the changes made, and how the conversion was undertaken. Data conversion is the manipulation of data from an old system to conform to the new format of the new system, performed to facilitate data migration. For non-complex implementations, there is usually software upgrades that are provided by the vendor. There are no data conversion features for upgrades. For moderate implementations, there are minor version upgrades for commercial software applications with limited data being converted. And for complex implementations, there are major version upgrades, there are new releases, platform changes that require voluminous or large-scale data conversion. Emerging technologies. As we have discussed in Chapter 2, entities may use emerging technologies, for example, blockchain, robotics, or artificial intelligence, because such technologies may present specific opportunities to increase operational efficiencies or enhance financial reporting. When emerging technologies are used in the entity's information system relevant to the preparation of the financial statements, the auditor may include such technologies in the identification of IT applications and other aspects of the IT environment that are subject to risks arising from the use of IT. While emerging technologies may be seen to be more sophisticated or more complex compared to existing technologies, the auditor's responsibilities in relation to IT applications and identify general IT controls in accordance with paragraph 26B to C remain unchanged.
Risks arising from the use of ITs relates to susceptibility of information processing controls to ineffective design or operation, or risks to the integrity of information, that is, the completeness, accuracy, and validity of transactions and other information in the entity's information system due to ineffective design or operation of controls in the entity's IT processes. When an entity has greater complexity in its IT environment, identifying that IT's applications and other aspects of the IT environment, determining the related risks arising from the use of IT, and identifying general IT controls is likely to require the involvement of team members with specialized skills in IT, such involvement is likely to be essential and may need to be extensive for complex IT environments. Examples of risks arising from the use of IT include risks related to inappropriate reliance on applications that are inaccurately processing data, processing inaccurate data, or both, such as unauthorized access to data that may result in destruction of data or improper change to data, including the recording of unauthorized or non-existent transactions or inaccurate recording of transactions. Particular risks may arise when multiple users access a common database. The possibility of IT personnel gaining access privileges beyond those necessary to perform their assigned duties, thereby breaking down segregation of duties. A classic example of this risk is the granting of a super user access to IT personnel. Unauthorized changes to data in master files, such as the general ledger master file. Unauthorized changes to IT applications or other aspects of the IT environment. Failure to make necessary changes to IT applications or other aspects of the IT environment when such changes are dictated by changes in the business or changes in the IT infrastructure. Inappropriate manual intervention, such as numerous management overrides and potential loss of data or inability to access data as required. The auditor's consideration of unauthorized access may include risks related to unauthorized access by internal or external parties, often referred to as cybersecurity risks. Such risks may not necessarily affect financial reporting, as an entity's IT environment may also include IT applications and related data that address operational or compliance needs. It is important to note one more time that cyber incidents usually first occur through the perimeter and internal network layers, which tend to be further removed from the IT application, database, and operating systems that affect the preparation of the financial statements. Accordingly, if information about a security breach has been identified, the auditor ordinarily considers the extent to which such a breach had the potential to affect financial reporting. If financial reporting may be affected, the auditor may decide to understand and test the related controls to determine the possible impact or scope of potential misstatements in the financial statements, or may determine that the entity has provided adequate disclosures in relation to such security breach. In addition, laws and regulations that may have a direct or indirect effect on the entity's financial statements may include data protection legislation. Considering an entity's compliance with such laws or regulations in accordance with ISA 250 may involve understanding the entity's IT processes and general IT controls that the entity has implemented to address the relevant laws or regulations. Why the auditor identifies risks arising from the use of IT and general IT controls related to identified IT applications and other aspects of the IT environment. Understanding the risks arising from the use of IT may affect the auditor's decision about whether to test Now, rating effectiveness of controls to address risks of material misstatement at the assertion level. For example, when general ADA controls are not designed effectively or appropriately implemented to address risks arising from the use of an ID, for example, controls do not appropriately prevent or detect unauthorized program changes or unauthorized access to AD applications. This may affect the auditor's decision to rely on automated controls within that effective IT applications. The auditor's assessment of control risk at the assertion level. For example, the ongoing operating effectiveness of an information processing control may depend on certain general IT controls that prevent or detect unauthorized program changes to the information processing control. That is, program change controls over the are related like the application. In such circumstances, the expected operating effectiveness or lack thereof of the general ADA control may affect the auditor's assessment of control risk. For example, control risk may be higher when such general ID controls are expected to be ineffective, or if the author does not plan to test the general ID controls. The identification of risks arising from the use of an ID also affects the auditor's strategy for testing information produced by the entity, that is, produced by or involves information from the entity's ID applications. For example, when information produced by the entity to be used as audit evidence is produced by an ID applications, the auditor may determine to test controls over system-generated reports, including identification and testing of the general ID controls that address risks of inappropriate or unauthorized program changes or direct data changes to the reports. The identification of rights arising from the use of ID also affects the auditor's assessment of inherent risks at their assertion level. For example, when there are significant or extensive programming changes to an ID application to address new or revised reporting requirements of the applicable financial reporting framework, this may be an indicator of the complexity of the new requirements and their effect on the entity's financial statements. When such extensive programming or data changes occur, the IT application is also likely to be subject to risks arising from the use of ID. Identifying the risks arising from the use of audit may also affect the auditor's design of further audit procedures. For example, if information processing controls depend on general ID controls, the auditor may determine to test the operating effectiveness of the general ID controls, which will then require the design of test of controls for such general ID controls. If in the same circumstances the auditor determines not to test the operating effectiveness of general ID controls, or that general ID controls are expected to be ineffective, the related risks arising from the use of ID may need to be addressed through the design of substantive procedures. However, the risks arising from the use of ID may not be able to be addressed when such risks related to risk for which substantive procedures alone do not provide sufficient appropriate audit evidence. In such circumstances, the auditor may need to consider the implication for the audit opinion.
The following discussions are based on the requirement of ISA 315 paragraph 26 B and C, which is summarized as follows. based on controls identified that address risks of material misstatement on the assertion level in the control activities component. The auditor next identifies the IT applications and other aspects of the IT environment that are subject to our risks arising from the use of IT. For such IT applications and other aspects of the IT environment identified, the auditor must also identify 1. The related risks arising from the use of IT, and 2. The entity's general IT controls that address such risks. And for each control identified, he must evaluate whether the control is designed effectively to address the risk of material misstatement at the assertion level, or effectively designed to support the operation of other controls. And 3. Determine whether the controls have been implemented by performing procedures in addition to inquiry of the entity's personnel. What does identification of the specific IT applications that are subject to risk involve? Number 1, understanding the nature and complexity of the specific IT processes and general IT controls. For the IT applications relevant to the information system, understanding the nature and complexity of that specific IT processes and general IT controls that the entity has in place may assist the auditor in determining which IT applications the entity is relying upon to accurately process and maintain the integrity of information in the entity's information system. Such IT applications may be subject to risks arising from the use of IT. Number 2, taking into account controls identified by the auditor because such controls may involve the use of IT or rely on IT. Identifying the IT applications that are subject to risks arising from the use of IT involves taking into account controls identified by the auditor because such controls may involve the use of IT or rely on it. The auditor may focus on whether an IT application includes automated controls that management is relying on and that the auditor has identified, including controls that address risks for which substantive procedures alone do not provide sufficient appropriate audit evidence. The auditor may also consider how information is stored and processed in the information system relating to significant classes of transactions, account balances, and disclosures, and whether management is relying on general IT controls to maintain the integrity of that information. The controls identified by the auditor may depend on system-generated reports, in which case the IT applications that produce those reports may be subject to risks arising from the use of IT. In other cases, the auditor may not plan to rely on controls over the system-generated reports and plan to directly test the inputs and outputs of such reports, in which case the auditor may not identify the related IT applications as being subject to risks arising from IT. The extent of the auditor's understanding of the IT processes, including the extent to which the entity has general IT controls in place, will vary with the nature and the circumstances of the entity and its IT environment, as well as based on the nature and extent of controls identified by the auditor. The number of IT applications that are subject to risks arising from the use of IT also will vary based on these factors. Examples. Number 1. An entity that has simple or moderate IT environment and uses commercial software but does not have access to the source code to make any program changes is unlikely to have a process for program changes, but may have a process or procedure to configure the software. For example, the configured chart of accounts, the reporting parameters or thresholds. In addition, the entity may have a process or procedure to manage access to the application. For example, a designated individual with administrative access to the commercial software. In such circumstances, the entity is unlikely to have a need for formalized general IT controls. In contrast, a large entity may rely on IT to a great extent, and the IT environment may involve multiple IT applications and IT processes. To manage the IT environment may be complex. For example, a dedicated IT department exists that develops and implements program changes and manages access rights, including that the entity has implemented formalized general IT controls over its IT processes. Example number 3, when management is not relying on automated controls or general IT controls to process transactions or maintain the data, and the auditor has not identified any automated controls or under information processing controls, or any that depend on general IT controls, the auditor may plan to directly test any information produced by the entity involving IT and may not identify any IT applications that are subject to risks arising from the use of IT. Example number 4, when the management relies on an IT application to process or maintain data and the volume of data is significant and management relies upon the IT application to perform automated controls that the auditor has also identified, the IT application is likely to be subject to risks arising from the use of IT. When an entity has greater complexity in its IT environment, identifying the IT applications and other aspects of the IT environment, determining their related risks arising from the use of IT, and identifying general IT controls is likely to require the involvement of team members with specialized skills in IT. Such involvement is likely to be essential and may need to be extensive, such as those with CISA certifications for complex IT environments. Example characteristics of an IT application that is likely not subject to risks arising from IT are standalone applications. The volume of data or transaction is not significant. The application's functionality is not complex, or each transaction is supported by original hard copy documentation. IT applications falling under these conditions are likely not subject to risks arising from IT because the volume of data is not significant and therefore management is not relying upon general IT controls to process or maintain the data. The management does not rely on automated controls or other automated functionality. The auditor has identified automated controls in accordance with paragraph 26A. Although management uses system-generated reports in their controls, it does not rely on these reports. Instead, it reconciles the reports back to the hard copy documentation and verifies the calculations in the reports. and the auditor will directly test information produced by the entity used as audit evidence. Example characteristics of IT applications are likely subject to risks arising from IT are applications that are interfaced. The volume of data or transactions is significant. The application functionality is complex. For example, the application automatically initiates transactions, and there are a variety of complex calculations underlying automated entries. Applications falling under these conditions are likely subject to risks arising from ID because management relies on an application system to process or maintain data as the volume of data is significant, and because management relies upon the application system to perform certain automated controls that the auditor has also identified. The other aspects of the IT environment that may be subject to risks arising from the use of IT include the network, operating system, and databases, and in certain circumstances, interfaces between IT applications, most particularly when it is interfaced with external parties. Other aspects of the IT environment are generally not identified when the auditor does not identify IT applications that are subject to risks arising from the use of IT. When the auditor has identified IT applications that are subject to risks arising from IT, other aspects of the IT environment, for example, the database, the operating system, and the network, are likely to be identified because such aspects support and interact with the identified IT applications. These other IT aspects will cover their nature, their audit objectives, as well as their applicable audit procedures to test their controls will be discussed in another chapter. In identifying the risks arising from the use of IT, the auditor may consider the nature of the identified IT application or other aspect of the IT environment and the reasons for it being subject to risk arising from the use of IT. For some identified IT applications or other aspects of the IT environment, the auditor may identify applicable risks arising from the use of IT that relate primarily to unauthorized access or unauthorized program changes, as well as that address risks related to inappropriate data changes. For example, the risk of inappropriate changes to the data to direct database access, or the ability to directly manipulate information. The extent and nature of the applicable risks arising from the use of IT vary depending on the nature and characteristics of the identified IT applications and other aspects of the IT environment. Applicable IT risks may result when the entity uses external or internal service providers for identified aspects of its IT environment. For example, outsourcing the hosting of its IT environment to a third party, or using a shared service center for central management of IT processes in a group. Applicable risks arising from the use of IT may also be identified related to cybersecurity. It is more likely that there will be more risks arising from the use of IT when the volume or complexity of automated application controls is higher and management is placing greater reliance on those controls for effective processing of transactions or the effective maintenance of the integrity of underlying data or information.
And there it is, Chapter 3, Understanding the Client's Use of IT. In the subsequent chapters and lecture videos, the identification of the specific controls at the three different levels, that is, the entity, general IT, and application level controls will be discussed. Evaluating the design and determining the implementation of identified controls in a control activities component will follow after that. For comments and suggestions or questions, please visit our FB group and post a comment on the post related to this video presentation, or you can send me a personal message. I discourage commenting on the YouTube post as I don't normally look at the comments to my videos. Also, be sure to check out any of the supplementary learning materials accessible from the FB post. Thank you for listening and stay safe always.